What's up, guys? Hey, I am going to give you the secret trust building sauce recipe today. So these things, they create trust and safety in a relationship. They make it so that you can have deeper connection, intimacy, and the beauty of it is they work in any relationship. So if you're just starting a new relationship with somebody, if you have these things, you're going to have trust and safety. If you've been through betrayal trauma, you've dealt with addiction, if these things can start to come into play in the relationship, then it's going to rebuild trust in the relationship. So you mix these things together and you will have trust and safety in your relationship, as long as the other person is willing to be vulnerable and trust again. So let's talk about ingredient number one. This is the foundation for building trust in a relationship. And by the way, you guys, these things seem kind of obvious, but they're not as obvious as you think. When you really start to break down what they are and what they mean day to day, then they're a little more complicated. So the foundation for trust: honesty. First ingredient to trust. So being honest with the other person, it doesn't mean just telling them the truth when they ask you a question. It means being open, and it means having integrity yourself. So you're honest with yourself, you're honest with other people, you're not living in denial, so you're not manipulating the truth all the time, but you're just living honestly and facing what is daily. So that is step number one, is you need honesty. Next is empathy. Now, why empathy builds trust and safety in a relationship? What that does is it says to the other person, it says, you're valid, I care about you, and you can be you. I want to understand you. I'm going to validate you. I'm going to be there for you. And empathy also shows the other person that you're not out to just protect yourself and manipulate the circumstance so that you're not hurt, or so that you don't have to feel vulnerability. Empathy says, look, I'll show up for you even when it's hard. Empathy is holding somebody's emotion with them. It's feeling it with them. And so it's, instead of trying to fix it, instead of trying to get them to see it a different way, it's just allowing them to feel what they're feeling. And so if you're honest about something, and let's say it's a hard reality, let's say you're honest about relapsing, or you're honest about something else that's difficult for them, when they feel sad or scared or lonely or stressed because of that, and you can just hold that and understand that and validate that with them, then it starts to create some safety. So if you're honest with them and you're empathetic, over time it starts to create safety. So ingredient number one is honesty. Ingredient number two is empathy. The last thing that you need is, you can be honest and empathetic, but that won't work. Those things are great, but those things alone won't work. So you have to have this last one, which is consistency. See if I can spell it right. Being consistently honest and empathetic. So if you're honest and empathetic for a week, and then you're lying and disconnected for a week, the person you're in a relationship with is going to wonder, gosh, when they're honest and empathetic, then when is it going to get bad? When is that going to shift and change? But as life goes, and there's ups and downs, and there's things that we struggle through, if you're steady and you're consistent and you're honest and empathetic through all those things, you are trustworthy, and you're rebuilding trust in the relationship. Addiction breaks these things down. Addiction's best friend is denial and secrecy. And so, because there's so much shame involved with addiction. So honesty doesn't happen when there's an addiction that's just running wild. Empathy, you don't want to vulnerably connect to somebody else when you have an addiction going, because you have so much shame there. So you don't want to get too close to other people, because you don't want them to see your shame. So you're shame screening and protecting. And so consistency, addiction makes it so that your behaviors aren't consistent, and you can't show up consistently because your life is becoming unmanageable. And so addiction drives a wedge between you and your partner, and it destroys these things. And so as you start to come out of your addiction, work on honesty, empathy, and consistency to rebuild trust in your relationship.